Welcome to the Day 2 podcast. Today's episode, redefining the Amazon first launch strategy. In the old days, this was a no-brainer. You absolutely could launch a brand, launch a product on Amazon. Today, maybe not so much. We're going to unpack that with Shannon Roddy on today's episode. I'm Jason Boyce, founder and CEO of Avenue 7 Media, co-author of the Amazon Jungle and host of the Day 2 podcast. Joining me today is Shannon. Shannon, Amazon educator, biz dev guru here at Avenue 7, and all around great guy. Shannon, this one's changed a lot, this topic. You've seen it. I've seen it. What's your initial take?
Again, I think 5 to 7 years ago, it was possible to launch a product on Amazon and with a minimal amount of SEO, decent listing optimization, and maybe a little bit of advertising, you could get traffic to your product. You could get those initial product reviews, feedback, have that iterative process that we always talk about. And I had a call with a client last week, or a potential client last week, and they said they were struggling with one of the brands that they're managing. And they said, we wanted to do an Amazon first launch strategy and do that same process, and just running into brick walls. We've seen such a shift in the last 5 to 7 years that Amazon has gone from being the platform where you launch first to, it's got to be the platform that you've got everything really dialed in. You've got product awareness, brand awareness, a engaged customer audience and demand, because the platform has become so inundated with, as you said, a billion products that now it's a matter of getting found. And so that's kind of my high level initial take. What are your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. The answer to the question starts with it depends, right?
Right.
If you're not selling on Amazon now, but you have 30, 40% market share in specialty retailers in your category, you've got brand awareness.
Right.
Absolutely launch on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
If you are running a television ad campaign or DRTV ad campaign and people are aware, absolutely launch on Amazon if you're not there. If you have an enormous social following and Kim Kardashian loves and likes your product, and all of a sudden you now have 500,000 followers on Instagram or TikTok, or one of your videos goes viral, absolutely launch on Amazon. If no one's ever heard of who you are, no one's ever heard of your brand name, no one knows what your value proposition, today more than ever, it is harder to launch a brand on Amazon. And I launched a brand on Amazon without any of the things that I just described, but it was a long time ago, Shannon. And it was a lot easier to do that because you could go into a subcategory, easily identify things that were wrong with the top selling products, fix them, make it look cooler, sexier, that sort of thing, offer a good value proposition, and really grow your brand on Amazon. But it's a lot harder now. It's so much harder now.
Yeah, it is. Two of the tools, I'll give you 2 paid tools and then 1 free tool that we use to sometimes analyze a potential client's launch potential on Amazon. Number 1 is SEMrush, which I love. They've now built out a suite of Amazon tools as well, but SEMrush from their Google analytics tool, just typing in your brand name, the product name, find out what is the search volume of people who are looking for your product on on Google. And then on the Amazon side, Helium 10 is a great tool to be able to plug in, again, your brand name, your product name, how many people are searching that, sort of estimated on a monthly basis. And then sort of at a more simplistic level, Jason, if you just go to the Amazon.com search bar and start to type in your brand name, the question is, does it autofill with the rest of your brand name, the rest of your product name? And how many iterations? If you see 15 iterations of your product name, people are searching for it with different sizes and different colors and different, in different orders. That's a pretty good indicator that your product is Amazon ready. For me, that's sort of the litmus test of if you've got demand, you've got audience awareness and demand, you should be on Amazon.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And another good time to launch on Amazon, you go in there and search your brand, and your top competitors that you know of are advertising on your branded keyword. Great time to launch on Amazon. But if your brand isn't popping up, and it's not there, Well, then we have to talk about that, right? And I know you've done this even before you joined the Av7 team. I've done it as recently as last week, where a great entrepreneur, inventor comes to me with a great product idea and say, "Hey, I'm ready to go on Amazon." I'm like, "You're
Yeah.
not ready. I love your product. I love where you're going with this, but do some TikToking. Get your social media channels going. See if you can get something viral. See if you can get some influencers involved in talking about this product. Come back and call us when you search your brand name on Amazon and you can see it autofill." I think
Bingo.
that's great advice.
And a really good example, I think some case studies and sort of stories that we can share will probably be really valuable for our audience. I had a
Yeah.
client reach out. I used to do coaching, sort of on-demand coaching, still available. But I had a client call me a couple years ago, and they said we want to launch on Amazon. And I looked at their business model, and I looked at their product, and I looked at the competition and the demand, and I said, look, go build up your social following. Nobody's ever heard of you before. You have zero brand equity. And on Amazon, brand equity is the game. And true to her word, I mean, I'm just amazed. She came back 2 years later. I'm surprised she even remembered me. She came back 2 years later and said, Shannon, I went and did what you told me. Now we're ready to launch on Amazon. And all those criteria that we just talked about were there. And sure enough,
Yeah.
ready to launch on Amazon. So for me, those are sort of, again, those litmus tests. It doesn't have to take you that long, but there are so many examples of companies that ignored this advice and failed, or ones that applied this insight and succeeded, that it's worth doing its own podcast episode about.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great topic that you brought up for today's episode. I was excited about this one, Shannon, because there's so much to unpack here. 10 years ago, I used to tell people all the time, yeah, launch on Amazon. Go find a product, go to a factory in China that's currently exporting products into the United States.
Right.
Go into their showroom, pick something, slap your brand on it, and bring it in, and be price competitive, right? And launch your brand that way. And once Amazon shoppers start buying your stuff, they're going to leave you product reviews. They're going to leave you comments and questions. Optimize your listing. Listen, gather the themes of those negative reviews and fix it. And every time you reorder it, upgrade your product and then talk about it in your listing. Every time you reorder, to the point where you get a 4 or 5 star product. And that was a great way to build a brand. I mean, I did it that way. I mean, I did it back in the Stone Age. I did it that way, Shannon. If you don't come to the table with Amazon, the bar has been raised so high with a defensible product, either IP, patented, or a unique use case that solves a unique problem. You cannot compete on price any longer. Why is that? Because you got China factories that Amazon rolled out the red carpet to, who are competing on price. You got Amazon Basics, who has about a 45% price advantage over you, if not more, dropping on. So you just can't compete on price anymore. So the moat is defensible product, building a brand, getting a following, building a community, and then potentially coming on to Amazon. And I hate to say it, but that's just the name of the game now.
Yeah, I'm going to talk specifically about inventors and inventions, because I mean, this is one of my personal passions. I grew up as a kid reading about Thomas Edison. He was like my hero, as a 7 and 8-year-old kid. And so I love inventions. I love creating my own products.
By the way, that makes so much sense to me. That you are a fanboy of Thomas Edison. That just is perfect sense, Shan.
Yeah,
sorry to
not as
interrupt. Keep
much
going.
now as I realized he was really just sort of a ruthless marketing guru who just sort of created this factory. But he was good. I mean, if you think about known inventors in America, we all just go with Thomas Edison, right? So there's elements of that he was so good at. But I'm so passionate and love inventors who have created an innovative product that is unique and does solve a problem. And here's the inherent challenge. If it really is unique, it's really hard to differentiate your product from other products. And especially, we always say this, price high and justified. If you've got a premium product that is, unparalleled in terms of the benefits, but customers don't see that on a detail page, and they're looking at another product that's $29.95 and yours is $159, and the other product has 1,000 5-star reviews and yours has 0, you're just going to be out of the gate getting your butt kicked from an advertising standpoint.
I was just going to say, yeah, and that all happens from the details page, Shannon. There's 150 sponsored ads directly under your bullet points on your details page now. So you have to be able to defend your ground, not just on the search results page, but on the details page. I bought something the other day, Shannon. I was getting served ads in the shopping cart in the checkout process. So you mean all the way down to the point where someone's ready to say yes, you
Wow.
could lose the sale in the cart. And so, yeah, I completely agree.
So there's just this element. The other part of it is the SEO standpoint. If it truly is an innovative product, there really is no SEO. There exists no search terms with which customers are familiar with to even find your product. And if your product is really new and innovative, they don't even know to find your product. And so that's where we talk about this is like third or fourth tier level of advertising where we're going after complementary products, where we're targeting, competitor products that are subpar. But again, to do that
Yeah.
without social proof is so challenging. And, for me,
Yeah.
we have a client that we brought on a few months ago. They did it right. They went to social media first, and I'll back up a step. They got their IP buttoned up first, right? So patents and
Yeah.
trademarks and copyright, they had all of that completely locked down. That's the defensibility you talked about. Then they went to social. And what I love about social media, Jason, is you can iterate your messaging so quickly. What do customers like? What do customers gravitate towards? What messaging triggers them? What posts are getting engagement and which ones are getting ignored? That can literally inform what your product detail page will eventually look like, even what types of images
Yeah.
are appealing to your potential customers, and even more so, who your customers are. And so, again, just this iterative process from a social media standpoint, driving that traffic to your e-commerce website, whether it's WooCommerce or Shopify or whatever you're using. And the reason this is so important is because you don't have to accept every single review that comes to your product. You don't have to post that on your website. You have control over that. You have direct contact with the customer. If they're not happy, it's not some outsourced Amazon customer service person just offering them a refund and sending it back. You get to have those conversations and say, "Hey, Jason, I noticed you ordered our product. You initiated a return. Would you be open to a 10-minute conversation to walk me through why that didn't work for you?" You can't do that on Amazon.
Mhm.
And so there's got to be this level
No.
of learning and iteration that happens first while you're building this brand awareness, while you're building your tribe, and while you're building customer demand on social first, because it's way more cheaper to do it there than it is to do it on Amazon at this point.
Yeah, and Shannon, I just got back from the Sale and Scale Summit, and Gary Vee was a keynote speaker. I love Gary Vee. I read a lot of his books and follow him on social media. I mean, what's better? There's never been a better time in history to be able to do 500 posts a week about your product for free, right? Typically, I remember what it was like when I launched my product. I had a lot more time than money, and so take advantage of social media and your iPhone, and just constantly test, constantly post
Mhm.
new messaging, try to get a feel for people who like this product, who will buy this product. And then once you get some free content that really starts to resonate or goes even partially viral, shows
Right.
10x, 100x the number of engagement as before, then you can promote that very inexpensively
Mhm.
to drive that awareness and to start a conversation with the consumer who uses their own money to buy the product and experience it. And that used to
Yeah.
be on Amazon. It used
Yeah.
to be that's the way to do it on Amazon, but it's not. And I don't want this episode to be like, don't launch your product on Amazon, because there's some steps that you can take where if you don't want to go that route and you want to launch off Amazon first, where you can make Amazon work, but it's definitely a different game now. And
Yeah.
so, like, for example, we've got, a really, really successful client. Every time they launch a new product, they will do a Kickstarter campaign. So Kickstarter, for those of you who don't know, is a
Right.
crowdfunding SaaS software system and platform where you can go out and raise money to invest in your new product. But here's the biggest joke of all. It's not really about the money that you get when
Mm-mm.
you raise it, but what you're building is an engaged community and a group of followers to support your product, give you feedback on your product, and you can fix a lot of the things that would lead to a 1-star review before they become a 1-star review. Reddit is another great channel. You can go in and start a subreddit with a loyal band of followers that go in and post passionately about the subcategory that you're in. Introduce the product to them, give them a free product, give them a shot at looking at what your
Right.
product does, what it is, what it does, what it looks like, what the packaging looks like. Get some initial feedback first. And then, of course, once you feel good that the product that you're introducing is liked by like-minded folks who like this product category, then you have to talk about budgeting. It's pay to play on Amazon now,
Yeah.
Shannon. Back when I started, there was no such thing as sponsored products. So, we would work the phones at Amazon and say, hey, give us a gold box
Right.
deal, right? That's what it was. We'll give you a really big discount if you give it on the homepage on Amazon. And then the thing would go from nowhere to top selling status. But it's really hard to do that now.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, like you said, it's about proof of concept really more than anything. And there's this element where if you can have the best product in the world, but if nobody gets it and nobody cares, you're not going to get sales on Amazon. And the idea of building up your tribe, your audience, and that social demand through social proof first, then driving that traffic to Amazon and your own e-commerce, that's where you get the product reviews and that's where you get the social proof. Now you've
Yeah.
got a baseline where you get other people who are looking at a complementary product and going, you're advertising against their listing or you're advertising against their product or brand name. And they go, this is interesting. And there's social proof to back it up, right? It's part of price high and justify, but it's also that innovation side. And I could say, I love working with innovative companies, and I've worked with dozens over the last couple of years. Innovative products are the hardest to sell. And what I've found is the key is that combination of video and social. I know we had Rick Cesari on a few weeks ago. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that episode. But a 15 to 20-second video about your product, advertised to the right audience, first on social media and then on Amazon, is critical because people have to see it to believe it. Even though we can do great product images on Amazon, the side by side of two product images often is not enough to tip the scales and tell the story for a new customer to go, oh my God, I get it. That product does that. Wow. I've been wishing for something like that. And I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll give you another use case here, Shannon. Before we got on to record this podcast episode, I was talking to a client, a really great client, terrific brand, well-known brand awareness. And they had either someone in-house and then followed by an agency who didn't really know what they were doing,
Right.
launch them on Amazon. The listings were so jacked up that they never had a chance of success, period. And it took us I think it took our team, our performance and compliance team, about 3 to 4 months to fix all of the mess that was created.
Right.
Amazon Seller Central platform is a very sensitive platform. If you do things wrong, or if you don't use the right compliant language, or if you set the structure of your individual product listing incorrectly, or you got a kid from just graduated from college loading up your brand and they misspell your brand name when they load that product up, and it gains a little bit of history and some good reviews, it's just never going anywhere. Right?
Yeah.
It's never going anywhere until you fix it. So we had this enormous cleanup. And now, they're starting to see 15% month over month growth. That's a very big growth number at the end of the year. So the other caution that I would say is, if you're an existing brand and you're coming onto the Amazon platform, you don't know what you don't know. And let me tell you, that list is long. And so I would highly recommend hiring an experienced Amazon operator, a team of experienced Amazon operators, and budgeting for it, or go to a group that knows what they're doing, a top tier Amazon agency, because what you don't know will kill you and will be very painful in the long run.
The long checklist that you're talking about, we offer on our website, day2podcast.com. You can go there, put in your email, name, and we promise not to spam you, but you'll get weekly recaps of this episode as well as other great tips. So The two other cautionary tales, Jason, that come to mind. One is actually a company that I was just talking with before this. Great product, won numerous awards, and every time they would launch, they would win all these awards, they would get all this great press, and then it would die off, and their
Mm,
sales would die off.
yeah.
And so we said, they're looking for advertising, and it's okay. Let's dive in there and see what was being done on the advertising. And it was literally 1% of what could have been done. And this is kind of going back to that whole Kickstarter Indiegogo. You
Yeah.
can get this great launch. You can even have a video go viral. That is not the end game. That is a bump, but you have got to sustain that with advertising. And so that's another sort of, again, cautionary tale of, you can't expect to, go on Good Morning America one day and then just coast on that for the next 12 months. You've got to solidify your sales rank with advertising, because now you've laid
Yeah.
the foundation with brand awareness and social proof, right? The other one that's sort of a cautionary tale is a company that worked with briefly, and this is months ago. They had a very innovative product. It was extremely expensive, and it had a handful of good product reviews, but nobody was, again, going back to SEO, nobody was searching for that exact product. Most importantly, though, people didn't understand how to use it or how it worked. And we're talking about a situation where they go, well, we want to launch on Amazon, because I talked to, the founder. He said, we wanted to launch on Amazon to build that credibility. And I said, not going to happen. Amazon is not the platform anymore to build your credibility. You have to build yourself as the authority off Amazon. I was like, start doing TikTok and Facebook and Instagram videos and YouTube videos every single day. Talk about the product, talk about your background and experience as an expert in your field, which he was. I said, you've got to
Yeah.
build that equity off Amazon and then relaunch the product, because once you get that demand and people go, oh, I know why it's 5 times more expensive than competitors. Oh, I get that this is how it's supposed to work. And they're not returning it saying it didn't do what it's supposed to. You didn't use it right. So there's so much aspects
Yeah.
of, like you said, going back to your Gary Vee comment, it's free. Yes, it's time. Yes, it's energy. In some cases, it's money to build out those assets. But honestly, what you can do on Canva, I mean, I've sold $50,000 of ad revenue with a video that costs less than $50 to make. Go on Fiverr and have somebody create an animated video for you. Like, it does not have to be expensive. Social media is the cheapest place to test and iterate the
Yeah.
messaging and find the audience. And if you can get people really excited and built up about your product, social influencers is another great way to do that. I mean, it's sort of like, going up the food chain. So
Yeah. And, it makes sense that a brand would think, without understanding the platform, that launching on Amazon and being on Amazon would add credibility. Here, I'm an Amazon top seller. But if you
right.
don't know the steps to get there and you don't know the mechanics, then it will have the opposite effect to your credibility, right? You'll go
Yeah.
on and, maybe your packaging isn't ready for ship to your door, and you start to get a string of bad reviews because people think the product's defective when it's really packaging. There's so many steps. And again, that checklist that we have on Day 2 podcast is helpful for folks to zero in on it, to see the full extent of what's required
Yeah.
to win on Amazon. In the old days, we'd grab a factory spec sheet, we'd throw it on Amazon, we'd go buy a container and make a lot of money. But
Done.
the game has definitely changed. And so, it's a much different story now than it was before. There are, I don't want this to be totally negative to try to convince people not to do it. If you have
Right.
a budget, and we've got plenty of, private equity group backed or VC backed companies that come to us and ask us to do a product launch when they don't have brand awareness, fine.
Right.
But that's the key. That's the key. It's pay to play on Amazon. You have to get that traffic from somewhere. If you
Right.
don't have that community, it's going to be expensive traffic. So you better have a big budget, right? And that's an on Amazon advertising budget. And then
Great.
secondly, you have to have the ability to iterate that product over time. You can still do that. And even in some areas, Amazon has been great. They've got a lot of new seller programs. Well, some not so new, but revamped, like Amazon Launchpad is a
Mm-hmm.
great program that Amazon offers. There's a new seller account team. So that will bring you in. If you have the potential to do $1 million in revenue in year one, then they'll work with you to get you a special trusted account and a lot of benefits, including deals, etc. The small business badge is another one. And I have to make a correction from the Accelerate conference, Shannon, because when I was at Sell and Scale, I talked to our friend Peter Kearns, who's at Amazon, and I said, "Hey, why did the person say you have to be handmade in order to do small business?" He says he misspoke. So
Oh,
you don't have to be
okay.
handmade. You don't have to be handmade in order to be small business. You just have to qualify for one of the federal definitions of what a small business is to get that badge. So
Got it.
those come with benefits, credits, discounts. Posts is a new thing. You can really literally build a following on Amazon now by taking that free content that you've created on social media and reposting it here on Amazon. And you can build followers, you can email to them. And so there are several programs if you are just getting started.
Yeah.
And you have to step back and ask yourself, Shannon, why would Amazon offer all those great new programs? It's because of what we're talking about here. Because
Yeah.
Amazon has become a platform where you can no longer come out of nowhere and launch a brand new brand and expect to have any sort of success whatsoever.
Yeah, the last piece that I think is so important that I want to highlight is it all comes down to data, right? This is why the social media testing and iteration is so important. We're getting data on what messaging our customers engage with. We get we get iterative data of, presenting the product as this versus that. You can get color iterations. I mean, there's so many things you can do through social media, and then as you move into your e-commerce channel and Amazon. And another really important example of this was, again, I did a quick audit for a business development consultant, and they said, look, we wanted to go on Amazon and we're iterating all of these different options. But it was like, honestly, Jason, it was like 50 options that they were iterating. So it was like size,
Too much.
size configurations, color configurations, different combinations. And I looked through all the data and they go, yeah, we're really not getting anywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really not surprised. And the reason is
Analysis
because
paralysis.
you have taken all of this great opportunity and you have spread the data among too many things. And so, going back to sort of the idea of simplicity, customer choice, when we give people more than 5 to 7 choices, we actually, in most cases, will actually discouraging them from purchase. Now, there's examples that could defy that. Like socks, for example, you go and you pick the size or style of socks, but in most cases, too many options can dilute the data and keep people. And I'm like, look, scrap all these things. Here's your 2 best sellers. I was like, take all of your advertising budget and advertise on these 2 ASINs and kill everything else. They're
Yeah.
like, you got to fix the listing. The product is great. People can't see it. They don't understand it. I'm like, use a 3D rendering at this angle and, cross slice it. Like there's so many things you can do that people just assume everybody knows how their product works. And they
Yeah.
assume that customers will get it. And I guarantee they won't. People need to hear 4 or 5 times how a product works before it clicks and they go, oh my God. So, again, go on social media, get the data, go to your e-commerce website, get the data, and then go to Amazon and get the data. And at every step and every point in that process, use it to make the product better, the messaging better, the targeting better, and the audience better. And then you'll be able to succeed on that Amazon launch.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can use some tools also to figure out what if there is a market on Amazon. We talk about this all the time. You can use
Sure.
Helium 10, which for a certain number of ASINs is free. You can use Jungle Scout Chrome extension, and
Mhm.
your bright idea. You got to make sure that everyone on Amazon that shops there thinks that it's a bright idea too. If it's not there, build it up somewhere else. Shannon, if you were to ask me today, would I launch Amazon only if I were starting a brand from scratch today? I would say no.
Yeah.
I would probably work with a contract videographer and do as much TikToking as I could about the
Mhm.
product. I would go into the subreddit. I would engage with that community to find out what products are out there, what's lacking in the products that are out there, and
Mhm.
then I would introduce it potentially, maybe with a Kickstarter, maybe not. I would certainly go and generate as much free content and test it as possible, and then bring it to Amazon later. And I would hire a pro. I would
Yeah.
find somebody who knows where the landmines and the quicksand are on this Amazon in this Amazon jungle, in order to not make things worse, and in order to give it a really good shot at success. So So look, I mean, is there anything else that you want to add in terms of to launch or not to add? Let's go back. Do you launch on Amazon or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to that criteria that we talked about. And remember that there's a difference in a slight iteration of a product that people are already familiar with versus an entirely new product. If you
Yeah,
come out with a product that everybody's familiar with, but is superior, great. You can advertise against that. If you come out with a product that everybody knows, but is cheaper, but still has good quality, you can
yeah.
advertise against that.
No, that's the perfect scenario too. Like if I were going to launch a brand on Amazon, this is how I would do it. I would find a very successful category using that market research data, and I would find the most flawed bestsellers
Right.
and back into a solution for the flaws in those bestsellers and build a brand off of that. I mean, it's essentially what we did in the home rec space back in the day. That is a very effective strategy even to this day. But to your point from earlier, Shannon, it's getting harder and harder to do that because the China factories are doing it, Amazon Basics is doing it, and there's a whole bunch of super smart Amazon seller entrepreneurs who are out there doing it. Many more than there were
Yeah.
ever, even 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah, and the last part of it is, we'll have to do a whole separate, podcast episode on influencers. But influencers is a great way to get your product in front of a willing and ready audience. And the benefit that
Yeah,
you get there is if the influencer buys into your product and goes, "Oh my God, I love this product," and they share it with their audience, you've just borrowed their social proof to create demand and that audience engagement that we talked about. And you can drive that again straight to your website, straight to Amazon. Amazon's got some great attribution links that you could track that back and see where the revenue came from. But a lot of times in those word of mouth scenarios, people just go to Amazon and search. And so like I said, we'll have to do a separate episode on that. But it's a great way when people are looking at how do I explain this product to people and how do I get social proof when I don't. If you can engage with a social influencer who gets your product and loves your product, there's different levels of paid engagement as well as free engagement on different levels, but it's a great way to jumpstart that and gain some of that, product demand and customer demand that we talked about.
yeah. So look, in the final analysis here, it's a lot harder now than it's ever been to launch a brand as an Amazon only brand. It was a lot easier when Anchor, Anker, launched their brand back in the day. I think it would be really hard for them to do it again. And so, secondly, if you are going to launch on Amazon first, make sure that you've got some in-house expertise or some consulting expertise in order to help avoid the pitfalls and the landmines that come with launching in the wrong way. Because I'll
Yeah.
tell you, it's a lot harder to edit listings now than it ever was before. It's hard to change the UPC code. It's hard to update your brand name. It's much more restrictive than it ever was. That's not to say that Amazon is not a good place to launch a brand. You just have to be really good and you have to be well funded. And if you're not, and you don't have any brand awareness anywhere else, take advantage of free social media to do as many posts as you can. Follow Gary Vee, listen to one of his YouTube talks. He's got this figured out. And once folks start advertising your brand name on Amazon and you start to see a lot of keywords with your brand name in front of it launch up, that's the time to launch.
Absolutely. Jason, this is a great episode. I know people, I'm sure, gained a lot of value, especially those who are in the consideration phase, right? We've just helped you avoid a really big landmine and I guarantee a very expensive mistake. And sometimes, look, we know sometimes a consultant that you hire, an agency that you hire can do a bad job. We understand that, right? People can botch, opportunities. There are times, though, when no agency and no consultant would be able to make your product launch a success if you are ignoring these sort of fundamental things. And, again, it's just important, it's education on the brand owner side. Do these things first so that you can be successful. And don't blame everything on an agency or consultant if it's not working. Sometimes you've got to do these fundamental pieces first.
Sometimes you got to grip the mirror and you got to take a look at your baby. And sometimes that baby's ugly when it comes to products. But the nice thing is there's so much data available now to help point you in the right direction if you're open to it, open to listening. And so, look, if you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon with a team of experienced Amazon operators, you can visit us at day2podcast.com, where you can also download that free Amazon sellers checklist that Shannon was talking about earlier in the episode to help you effectively launch, grow, and protect your brand. Lastly, if you know of anyone who would gain value from this podcast, please share it with them and help get them on their way to their selling journey. Thanks for listening and happy selling.